today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in August. August was actually not a great month for me. A weird month, to be honest. I only read, I want to say 6 or 7 books. It's funny that I can't tell you the right number when they're literally right in front of me, but I don't feel like counting. So let's just get into it. I'm feeling a little off. Let's hope this video isn't a little off. Anyway, geez, Sabrina, what an intro. The first book I read in the month of August was Brutes by Diz Tate. Oh, I should hold it over here. Brutes by Diz Tate. This book, I can't even describe it, which is the thing. Which is my main complaint about this book. I guess essentially it follows these middle school girls that are all in this big friend group, and they're so enmeshed with each other that you can't even really tell the characters apart that well. And at the beginning of this book, a girl in the community goes missing, and the community is searching for her and trying to figure out what happened to her, and you're just following this group of middle school aged girls and their shenanigans, I guess. It's a bad description, I know, but that's how confusing this book was. I gave this book 3 stars. I do not know what happened in this book. I read every single word, I promise, but I don't know what happened. I can't explain the plot. It just felt like a fever dream, to be honest, which really sucked because sometimes fever dream can be a fun description if it's a weird book, but this one was such a it genuinely felt when you sleep and you have a really weird dream and none of it makes sense, and then you wake up and you can't even remember what happened. You just remember tidbits, but you can't make sense of how they connected in any way. That's what this book felt like. It just felt like you're waking up out of a dream and you're what the fuck was that? But you can't make any coherent understanding of it in your mind. I don't know. It just sucks because I really, really was looking forward to this book and I was convinced I was going to love it and I was just so excited, and then I just did not connect to it. I did give it 3 stars because I did like their writing, but this is kind of a flop for me, not going to lie. After that, I picked up Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. Yes, that's his name. It took me a second to make sure. This book essentially follows a family with 12 children, and 6 out of those 12 children have schizophrenia. It follows not only the history of the family, but also the history of medical research around schizophrenia. So I feel I really learned a lot. For instance, before I read this book, I thought schizophrenia was just limited to hearing voices in your head, but it turns out it's a much broader mental illness than that, and it can encompass a lot of different things. So that was interesting to learn about. And usually reading chapters that delve into science just kind of goes over my head because I'm not a science girly. But I think this author did a really good job of making it comprehensible for people without science knowledge. Just overall, I think it's a really important story to have been told, and I'm glad that I read it. It was also just kind of fascinating, in a morbid way though, because this book is really sad. It primarily follows the 2 daughters of this family who both did not have schizophrenia, but it's just kind of them grappling with their childhood and how hard their childhood was, because their brothers were, I don't want to say they were undiagnosed, because at a certain point they were in psychiatric hospitals and had diagnoses and were on medications, but their brothers were just really never stable in any way. So you can imagine that made for a rough childhood. Again, just really interesting. If this book at all sounds interesting to you, I recommend picking it up. It kind of reminds me of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, except that book did a lot more delving into race and the social conditions of the family and stuff like that, socioeconomic conditions. And this didn't really go into that kind of stuff. But if you liked the sciencey parts of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks and how it told the story of her life a little bit, I think you'd like this one. The next book I read is A Kiss Before Dying by Ira Levin. This book, I was so excited about this book. This one was also kind of a flop for me. So essentially this book follows your main character who's, I can't remember his name, but he's this guy, right? And he's been dating this girl named Deborah, and Deborah comes from a really wealthy family, which is pretty much the only reason he's seeing her. But then he gets her pregnant, and he tries to convince her to have an abortion, but things kind of get rocky from there. And that's all I'm going to say, because for most of this book, you really should go into it like blind and like not really knowing the bulk of the plot. I will say though that this book was just so slow in the beginning. Like it ended up having some good twists and ended up being like an interesting story, but the first half of it is just very painful to get through, which really sucks because I read this book after reading Rosemary's Baby and The Stepford Wives by this author, and I loved both of those books. I think both were 5 stars. I was so looking forward to this book, and it just kind of ended up being a flop. So, floppy month August was. I don't know why I said it like that. After that, I picked up The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This book follows a man and his wife, a husband and wife. And at the beginning of the book, the wife finds out that the husband has been cheating on her and having an affair with another woman. And she finds this out because he's being accused of murdering her. And his wife just happens to be like the top criminal defense lawyer in the area, and she decides to take on her husband's case and defend him. I don't have too much to say about this one. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I thought it was like a quick and entertaining read, but ultimately it was just so dumb. Like, especially the ending, it just, like, the twist wasn't very satisfying. It was just like, that's so stupid. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one unless you're really into the idea behind it. Like, maybe give it a go. I got it for free on Amazon, so I'm not really like mad. I didn't spend money on it or anything, but I just thought it was silly. And not only was the ending so ridiculous, but the characters just acted so stupid the entire time, especially the husband. Like, this man was on house arrest and he had like an ankle monitor, and then all of a sudden he was like stealing someone's car and like going to try to beat someone up, or like he was escaping from jail, and it's just like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, even if you didn't kill the woman, like, you're getting yourself jail time just by being a fucking idiot. Oh my god. Okay, so that was that book. After that, I picked up Penance by Liza Clark. I was interested in this book because I read Boy Porch by this author, but I wasn't totally into it. But this book just sounded so much more interesting. So essentially, you're following this group of teenage girls who tortured and then set on fire and killed a classmate. And you're kind of following the story. It's written as if it's a nonfiction by like a journalist who's investigating the case and writing a book about it. So this is the book he's writing about it. And I really like when a fiction book pretends like it's nonfiction. For some reason, that just really does it for me. I read this book over the course of like 3 weeks while I was on vacation, which is why it looked a little beat up. And I feel like I might have enjoyed it even more had I read it all in one go. But ultimately, I still ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I really loved how like multidimensional the characters were. Like, you know, right from the start that these girls did like a heinous act and like set on fire a girl their age just because I didn't like her. But there are moments in this book where like you're learning about their life stories, and it really makes you feel for them. And this opposite is also true for the victim. Like, you feel for her, obviously, because how could you not? But there's also moments in this book that make you really dislike her. So I just loved how like fleshed out everyone was as a character. But ultimately, I think my favorite part of this book was a critique of like the true crime industry. I've always been very wary of true crime as a genre. Like, it just kind of, I think it's just bad for us, to be honest. Like, I think it just makes people more afraid of other people. And I think it just like glamorizes like killers and doesn't really do anything for the victims. And I think this book really shows how like even people who just write like a true crime book like twist the truth, don't really do justice to the victims, and just don't really care about the people who are impacted by the crimes. Like, I think this book did a really great job of that. Ultimately, really, really enjoyed this. As I already said, I'm so excited to see what Liza Clark does next. I heard someone on BookTube said that like she said that she's never going to write a book in the same genre, and I almost wish she would write a book exactly in this genre again, because that's how much I enjoyed it. And then the very last book I read in August is Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. This book follows a daughter of Chinese immigrants. She was raised to be like a classic piano player, and she got into like a very highly renowned school for it and was just super talented, but her parents have since fallen ill, and she's just working at like a dead-end restaurant job when some woman who works at this store called Holistic approaches her and essentially invites her to work there. And Holistic is like this really like high-end beauty supply store. They have like not only beauty like products but also treatments that they sell, and it's really like cutting edge technology. Like there's like eyelash extensions made out of spider silk and just stuff like that. And I can't really say much about this plot either. It just kind of like descends into like a creepier and creepier atmosphere. It ends up being like a body horror novel. I really enjoyed this one. I knew I was going to, but I read it in 2 sittings. I could not put it down. I just love the slow, eerie atmosphere that builds upon itself. Like, this is a book for the weird girlies. This would make a great A24 novel, although I have no idea how they would like pull that off with the way that the character like changes throughout the novel. I also really love the commentary on capitalism and the beauty industry and racism, and just like it was great. It was great. You should check it out. You should read this. Highly recommend. I gave it 4 stars. So there you go. Those are the, how many? I think there was only 6 books. Those are the 6 books I've read in August, which like, I'm telling myself it was such a slow month, and it's like, I almost felt like it wasn't even worth recording a video about, but 6 books is pretty good. That's more than a book a week. Like, I need to not have unrealistic expectations for myself, especially with everything I had going on in the month of August. So let me know if you read any of these books down below, what you thought. Let me know what books you read in August, and just generally leave any comment. I love reading your comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.